Hi friends, tonight we're going to take a look at the differences between the HK45 full-sized and the HK45 compact. Both of these are the tactical model, and all that means is just that each has a threaded barrel and Meprolite True Dot night sights. So you've decided to buy a giant suppressor-ready 45 tactical thingy, right? And you've narrowed it down to one of these HKs. And after the price drop, these seem more appealing than ever. I see them around $700 or so, making them pretty much the best value when it comes to a giant 45 tactical brick gun. But how do you decide between the two? They're pretty similar, aren't they? Well, we'll kind of run through the differences, and then I'll tell you which one I personally would choose, although obviously I have chosen both. I just really like HKs, and I just wanted them both. I had to have them. All right, so the features. Both of these hold 10 rounds, and if we take a look here, the magazine of the compact is actually just the same as the full size, but it's got this funny hoof on the end, which I actually really find to be comfortable, so I don't hate that at all. You can get 8-round magazines, which I think come with the non-tactical version. The 8-rounders fit a bit closer to the gun and make it substantially smaller. This gun would also be a lot smaller without the threaded barrel as well, and it's cool that you can switch back and forth between them if you buy the standard barrel. Very, very versatile, that gun. So both of these have the threaded barrel for a suppressor, like we talked about, and both of them have the Meprolite True Dot night sights, which I like okay. I really prefer the Trigicons. I don't find these to be very precise, and they have a different hold than I'm accustomed to, but I'll get used to the hold over time. Although I will say, I've shot several thousand rounds through these, and I'm still not quite used to that yet. Maybe because I have Trigicons on so many of my other guns. But both of these have a loaded chamber indicator, which I don't know if you can see that, but there's a little red thing there that shows you when there's a round chamber. Both of these have the ambidextrous slide release and magazine release. I really, really, really like the paddle magazine release. I find it to be superior for speed to the American style magazine release. Really, really like that. Both of these have HK's excellent recoil buffer. And hell, let's just take a look at what that looks like. It also shows you the takedown. Both of these take down exactly the same way. Very easy. You line up the little notch with the thingy. Pull the thingy out, pull that forward. And the recoil buffer is just this little nylon ring there. But man, does it work. Oh, let's just look inside the full size while we're looking at it. I know you want to. And then I'm just going to drop everything. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, without that magazine in it, see, this thing's it's more compact. I mean, it's still giant, but it's more compact, I guess. Oh, while we're talking about it, safety decocker. On both of these, I'm not super crazy about the safety. I would prefer that it had the decocker of the P30. We might look at my P30 later. So this one, the takedown's exactly the same. And here we see our recoil buffer. The P30's got that recoil buffer too. Some folks say that the recoil buffer in the HK45 series is not as effective as the one in the USP series. I have not found that to be the case. I think it works just as well, and it's a bit simpler, so that's always nice, right? So again, safety decocker here on this one too. Yeah, it makes a very satisfying noise, and that kind of makes up for how obnoxious it is to have a manual safety on there. And I know somebody's going to say, have you tried the LEM trigger? Doesn't work that great for me. I'm going to stick with this configuration and continue to complain about the safety instead of switching. The full-size version has the Spider-Man grip. I really like the Spider-Man grip. It's great on the P30, it's great on the VP9, and it's great on this. I really like it. It just feels awesome. That said, the HK45 Compact has the more P2000-ish grip. I find it to work just as well. People say it's slick. That's not been my experience. I love it. It feels really, really nice to me. In fact, I think I like this better. I don't want to, but the more I've shot it, the more I like it better. I just have to be honest. Okay, so something that you may consider a feature, or it may drive you absolutely crazy, the trigger trough on the full size. So as you can see, the trigger rides in this trough thing there. Some people say it pinches their finger. I'll tell you what I think about that later. But it is also said to keep gloves from getting hung up behind or under the trigger. I've shot both of these with gloves on. This one doesn't have the trough, and gloves don't get stuck in there, and it's under its trigger. So I don't know. The trigger trough doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't understand why they did that. So the differences in feel. The full size is 2 ounces heavier, maybe, I think. But it feels to be a lot heavier because with the longer barrel, which you may consider to be a feature, causes the weight to be moved a bit farther forward in the gun. So the gun kind of feels like it's gonna tip, whereas the compact, it feels to be weighted directly over the shooter's hand. Very comfortable. The compact is about as close to being perfectly weighted as a gun can possibly be. The grip of the full size is much more comfortable for most people and less likely to slip, though I've had no problems with the compact slipping even when I'm sweaty. Just kind of take that out of the equation. Both of them feel great. And frankly, if you were going to carry this, you might be glad that the grip doesn't have all this stuff on there that's going to snag against your clothing. I feel as though I have to move my hand to actuate the magazine release on the bigger one. I feel like I have to sort of slide my grip open slightly to get to that. Whereas on the compact, I'm just there. Now, I will say though, on the compact, because you have this room down here that's kind of left open and your finger wants to kind of almost hang off a little bit, I do feel like I have to open my hand to let the magazine out. Not a big deal. It's the price of this gun being slightly less giant, though it is still completely giant. The magazine release on the compact kind of, I don't know, it feels a little sharper. Maybe it digs into the end of my sensitive little finger, or maybe, I don't know. I kind of like the one on the full size a little bit better. Although again, this one's a lot easier to get to. So, what are you gonna do? It's a trade-off. The compact has very slightly more recoil due to the shorter barrel and the lack of 2 ounces. And when I say slightly more recoil, I mean very slightly more. And it does manifest itself as a little bit more flip, but as you know, if you have a shorter barrel, there's gonna be a little bit more flip. So what are you gonna do? It's not a big deal. Let's talk about the triggers here. That's one of the biggest differences in terms of shooting experience, I think. So let's talk about the recent history of HK triggers overall. So you can see the 45 full size kind of looks like the P30, right? And it unfortunately shares the trigger feel with the P30. What I mean by that is the single action is really spongy. You see all that? So there's my take up, and then some weird floppiness, and then there you go. The trigger's light, but it's really spongy and weird. Look at the reset. A little bit longer, right? That said, the double action feels really nice. Same as the P30, in fact. Let's take a look. So the P30, see all that movement? Same thing. And then look at the reset. Oh, that's really crazy. There's no reset on the P30 essentially. It's pretty rough. But the P30 has the decocker on the back and no safety lever. This decocker location, that's genius. Whoever thought of that, oh, they're smart. It's the best decocker around. I love it. That is really, really nice. Okay, so there's the P30 trigger. Spongy and weird, but functional. The full size, though, since it shares the aesthetics with the earlier P2000, it also shares the trigger feel with the P2000. And what I mean by that is the single action super crisp. There's still a little bit of that traditional HK sponge, but that is really nice. And the double action is a little heavier and maybe not as smooth, but I still prefer it for some reason. A lot of it seems to be that the trigger on this gun is very inflexible, and the trigger on this gun, the trigger itself feels like it's flexible or something. It's really weird. It's super weird. So the trigger on the 45 is still fine, and it's still really, really, really great for a factory trigger, but it's just thrown into sharp contrast by the fact that the compact has an amazing trigger. So take that for what it's worth. That if I didn't have both of these, I'd probably be telling you this is a pretty good trigger, but compared to this, not so much. So how do these differences work in the real world? Well, the compact is easier to shoot for a variety of reasons. The better trigger leads to faster, better shooting performance, though I still shoot the full-size model really well, just not as well. The compact, though, is more of a surgical tool. The full-size, just slightly less so. In actual practice, while shooting quickly, the compact doesn't really have noticeably more recoil. Though you will feel it a little bit when slow firing, and we're talking like a 10 or 15% difference here. Just adjust your technique and it'll compensate for the extra flip. Okay, now the really bad about the full size. The trigger trough, absolutely rubs my finger raw. I usually wake up the day after shooting this extensively with a blister. I don't understand the design choice. It's absolutely stupid. This gun would feel 10 times better than it does if they just took the trigger trough out. And yeah, there are people out there who are kind of like dremeling that out, but most of the work that I've seen on the internet looks really bad and not good enough, and I'm not going to do that to my lovely HK. The trigger trough problem only manifests itself during sort of extreme shooting circumstances anyway, when you've been spent all day with it. But the bigger problem for me is that your thumb on both models has to kind of wrap around the decocker, right? And if you're used to 1911s and the like, you naturally want that to go up there. But then the decocker under recoil will get pulled down slightly, and then the trigger's dead. So you can't do that, right? That's not going to work. So naturally, the next thing to do is to wrap your thumb around to the side. That works great on the compact, but on the full size, as the gun is recoiling, it is absolutely going to beat the web of your thumb to death right here. It gives me a bruise every single time. It's awful. It really, really, really hurts. Again, this is only happening under sort of extreme shooting circumstances, but still. But at least it frees it up to where the trigger will work. But, all right, same thing here. You naturally want to do this. That's very comfortable on the compact, but you're still gonna kind of, oh, see, it's harder to do it on the compact, actually. There we go. That freezes it up. So the compact just seems to be less sensitive to that problem as well. On the full size, I pulled it down, made the decocker down maybe a third of the way, and it happened. I had to pull it almost all the way down on the compact to get the malfunction to occur, if you can even call it a malfunction. But what CZ does with their decockers, on like the SP01 Tactical, is it just goes the other way, and bam, your problem's resolved. But HK, I understand they've got a thing and they don't want to change it. That makes sense, but they should just move the decocker here like it is on the P30. So on the compact, when I move my thumb to the side, I don't know what it is, but the geometry of the gun is such that it just doesn't beat me to death. It feels really nice. There will still be a little bit of discomfort, but we're talking after 500 rounds in a sitting with the compact. Versus, I don't know, I start to have problems around 200 rounds with the full size. So, overall, it seems like I hate the full size, right? I really don't, and the ergonomic problems are not going to bother everybody. It's fun to shoot and it's fun to look at. Some of my friends absolutely prefer the full size to the compact in every way. The full size is more than the sum of its features and problems, and if you like the big USPs, you'll love the big HK45. I love it and I shoot it often. And you know, it's kind of good for improving your shooting technique, because if your technique isn't perfect, the gun hurts you, making it a great training tool. And look, the problems I was discussing, if you just take this to the range and shoot 100 or 150 rounds through it in a sitting, you're not going to even experience any of those issues that I talked about, most likely. You may, but probably not. For me, after just shooting 50 rounds or something through it, I don't feel any discomfort at all. So, yeah, if you prefer this one, just go ahead and buy it. You'll still love it. But the compact, in my opinion, is the better gun. It's smaller, it weighs less, it has the same magazine capacity. There are really almost no trade-offs. It's essentially still a full-size pistol, being utterly giant in its own right, with very little recoil, a lovely trigger, and extremely ergonomic controls. You can make it smaller by using the smaller magazines and a non-threaded barrel, so it's really versatile. This is a gun that you could carry. It could be a range friend or a combat sidearm. So, which to get? I really think you should just get the compact. If you're just kind of interested in HKs, you're interested in the Giant 45, buy this one and never look back. You probably won't miss this one. Really, this gun, just the little things about it do kind of irritate me, even though I love shooting it. Whereas this one, since it has so few things to irritate me, I find that when I'm choosing something to take with me as a range friend, it's this one pretty much every time. That said, you know, I'm still shooting this thing more than a few times a month, and I'm shooting it extensively. But this thing goes with me pretty much every time. I really, really like it. If you can buy both, buy both. If you can't or just don't want to, buy the compact. It's one of the best 45s around. You won't regret it. And one last thing I need to note, just because I don't feel like I focused on it enough. The recoil. The recoil system that HK has put into these is absolutely amazing. These have less recoil than just about anything else I've shot, and I'm super impressed. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. I hope this has been helpful to somebody trying to make a decision between these two. I really appreciate your support, and I hope you all have a lovely evening. Good night.